All right, everyone. So today I wanted to share with you guys the information on the exact order that you want to 5-star awaken your SSR gear. And this is really important because it takes a lot of resources to 5-star awaken SSR gear. So you want to have in mind what your priority is going to be, whether you want to work on this piece of gear or that piece of gear, because it's unlikely you're going to have the awakening materials, including those pesky awakening stones, to take whatever gear that you want anytime to 5-star. And it's really important when you ask yourself this question: when I work on a particular piece of gear, how much usefulness is it going to provide for a unit versus if I work on another piece of gear? Because in every situation, working on some gear is going to be more useful for a unit rather than working on another piece of gear. And it's going to take the same amount of materials to work on any kind of gear regardless, so obviously you want to work on the gear that's going to be the most useful first. So that's what I wanted to share with you guys today, and let's go ahead and use Escanor as our example, because I don't think anybody is going to get tired of looking at Escanor. So also, I just have my 5-star rare gear equipped just because just for an example, and it's got the 5 stars, so it looks a little bit nicer. So we're going to also separate the two main gear sets that people use on most units. And these are the 4-set, the attack set, and the 4-set for HP. And it's not like one of them is bad or one of them is good or anything like that. They are both very useful in multiple different situations across multiple different units. But the order that you prioritize your gear is going to be different based on which of those sets that you are using. So, the attack set and the HP set, a lot of the times I'll call them the main set or the primary set because they are the 4-piece. And then like the defense set that I have equipped here, I'll call it the, the secondary set or something like that because it's only a 2-piece. But let's go over attack first. So the first piece of gear that you want to work on for an attack-based unit is going to be the bracelet here. And you might have heard people say, generally work on the left gear before the right gear. And this is fine. This is just a generalization, though. It's not 100% true in every case. And the reason why people say that is because each piece of gear has a counterpart that offers the same type of stats. Like for the bracelet, it's going to be the ring. But the difference is the right version of it is going to have a lower basic stat roll. You can see 105 through 140, whereas the bracelet here is 180 to 240. So that's why you'll hear people say work on left gear before right gear, but it's definitely not 100% true in all situations, and you'll find out in just a second what I mean by that. But bracelet is number 1. Now, number 2 here, you've got 2 options actually. So you could mix around number 2 and number 3. But for primary attack-based units, I would, at that point now, after the bracers, I would work on either the belt or the ring. Now, important things to note on which of those to make as your choice. If this is like a particularly, farming unit, like that you primarily use just for farming, and you don't really use it much for PvP, and you don't really, CC is not the biggest thing, I would probably go with the ring. Because when you're farming, you get to a point where, you've been playing for a while, and the units that you use way over level and over gear the content that you're farming. And at that point, CC and survivability don't really mean that much. It doesn't really matter adding more survivability if you're never really going below 70 to 80% of your HP anyway. So what you want to do, for particularly farming units, is at that point you want to stack as much attack and DPS as possible to try to clear quicker to obviously increase your farming speed. So, in those cases, I would go with the ring as your second choice. But you could also go with the belt, and this is really more like for PvP, if CC is more important and if survivability is more important, because obviously as a left piece of gear, you're looking at more of those stats. And the other important thing is HP is the best of the 3 stats for combat class scaling. So it's going to go HP, attack, and defense in 3rd place. So if you want to boost up your CC on attack-based units, you'd probably want to work on the belt as your second option. But either way, whatever you work on second, then the next one is going to be 3rd. So if you were to work on, the ring, then 3rd would be the belt. And if you were to work second on the belt, then 3rd would be the ring. So that's number 2 and number 3. And now number 4 and 5 are kind of that same situation. You can pick either of these to work on as number 4, but whatever one that you don't work on is going to then be number 5. So that is going to be either your rune or the necklace. Now, even though the necklace is a left piece of gear, and even though I use the defense set on most units, the amount of combat class and scaling that HP provides in comparison to defense is just so crazy that it still makes, worth considering the rune as your 4th choice instead of the 5th. I think a lot of people are probably going to lean towards the necklace just because it kind of fulfills that left side of the gear with higher stats, but the rune is definitely not a bad choice as well, especially if you have a lot of HP from other sources on that particular unit. So, you know, you're looking at the necklace as number 4, and then it would be the rune as number 5, or vice versa. The rune as number 4, and then the necklace as number 5. And of course, last place, and this is always going to be last, even for the next example that I use, which is primarily HP-based units, always last is going to be the earrings. It's just kind of like, you know, it's the third wheel, or I guess in this case, the 6th wheel, because defense, unfortunately, scales the worst with combat class, and also it's the right side of the gear, so, you know, you've just got that to finish things off there. So that's the list for primarily attack-based units. Now let's switch over and talk about primarily HP-based units. Now, HP is important because it is going to provide you the most combat class. So if you want to pad or boost your combat class a ton, you probably want to use the HP set on units rather than the attack set. Obviously, it's going to give you a bunch of survivability as well, but the priority order for HP is going to be a bit different. So first up here, now instead of the bracelet, you want to work on the belt as first. So this is your primary HP item. Obviously, the counterpart is the rune, but it's got much lower base stats there. So that's going to be first up. Now, number 2 and number 3, just like with the attack set, you can go with either of these for number 2, but whatever you don't, it's going to be, the next one is going to be, you know, they're going to switch. So you've got the rune that you can work on the second item for HP-based characters, or you've got the bracelet that you can work on as the second item. And if you were to work on the rune, for example, then your third item would be the bracelet. If you were to work on the bracelet, then your third item would be the rune. And an important distinction here is it kind of depends on what the unit that you're building on is actually doing. Like, obviously, if they're not really attacking a whole lot, and attack isn't that important for the unit, and you just want as much HP and survivability as possible, I would skip right over and work on the rune seconds. Now, if it's the other way around, and it's a unit that you want to keep relatively balanced and still have a decent amount of attack on, then I would work on the bracelet, and then third, I would work on the rune. So that's that's second and third right there, and now fourth and fifth is going to be the ring and the necklace. So once again, I think most people at this point are probably going to go with the necklace just to kind of round things off. You know, it's going to complete the left side items at this point. Also, it is a defensive stat. If you're using like a defense set of gear with the HP set, that I think I'm leaning a bit more towards the necklace here. But you still have the ring, and I don't think that the ring is a bad choice for your fourth item either, especially if it is a unit where you are still trying to do a decent amount of damage on. But don't feel bad if you don't pick the necklace as number 4, because again, defense stats, just in comparison to how they scale with, you know, HP and attack stats, they don't offer as much combat class as you might think they do, and it's not a big deal to, you know, work on the ring 4th and the necklace 5th, for example. But either way, you can work on the necklace 4th and the ring 5th. That's an option as well. To end things off, though, always in last place for both the attack and the HP set, we are going to go with the earrings. So in all examples, we're going to use this one as last. And again, unfortunately, it's the right side gear, which means it's got the lower stats, and it's defense, which scales the worst. So, you know, it's just kind of like the last choice for all options there. So I wanted to end off by showing you guys a really cool trick that I've actually used to really get an idea of how much combat class certain gear slots actually provide. So in order to do this, first of all, I want to actually see the combat class that I have originally. So we're looking at 35,269. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my bracelet here and I'm going to replace it with a common version. And I also made sure that all the common versions have as close to as low stats as possible, because the idea here is I don't want to completely remove it and compare it with nothing, because that's going to remove my attack set, which is going to mess with these stats quite a bit and give me a really inaccurate idea of, you know, how much the bracelet is actually truly providing. But if I replace it with the common bracelet here, I still maintain the attack set, and I can get a sense of like what I'm losing from the bracelet, and then I'll switch over to the necklace and I'll switch it out for a common one and kind of what I'm losing there. And it's just really an apples to apples, oranges to oranges type comparison. It's not perfect, but it still gives you a pretty good idea of the ratio of combat class that each slot provides. So 35,269. Now if we switch over here, we're at 33,756. Okay, so now let's go ahead and, where was it? This one here, and I know it's correct if it is 69 there, okay? So now let's do the necklace here and equip this one. And you could see that we're at 34,522. So, you know, bracelets provide much more stats in terms of combat class than necklaces. And that's just the way that defense works with how much it contributes to the combat class that you have. So now let's go ahead and switch back to the necklace that I was using. Check to see that it's correct. And let's just do the belt as the last one here so you can get a sense that HP easily provides the most combat class. Look at that, dropped me all the way down to 32,216. So that's a pretty big difference there. Let's put the original one back on, and this is going to bring me back up to 35,269. And all of the rare gear that I was using, by the way, is all roughly the same types of stats. You know, we're looking at pretty high rolls for the base stat, and also all the bonus rolls are, you know, pretty close to capped out. We're looking at around 14% plus for each and every one of them. So not nearly enough to, you know, mess with the stat distribution much. Like if I were to switch out these 14.3% ones, let's just switch to, you know, let's switch to this one here. It only actually changes my combat class by like 15 points. So anyway, let's go back to 269, which is these ones here. 269. All right, we are good to go. Anyway, that's going to be it for the video. I threw an insane amount of info at you guys today, so I'm going to leave it here, and hopefully you enjoyed. So if you did and you want more videos like this in the future, consider subscribing to the channel. Feel free to leave a quick like as well. It means more than you can imagine, so thank you so much to all of you who decide to do that. And more 7 Deadly Sins Grand Cross Global videos should be popping up on the screen right about now. Feel free to check them out. But if not, until next time, take care everyone, and this is Salt of the Salty Guild, signing out.